Today, we're joined by Ramin Montakab. Did I pronounce that correctly? Did I
Ramin
butcher it?
Montakab. Yeah, it's close enough. Thank you.
Ramin Montakab, okay, founder of RTM Law, which stands for Really Tough Matters. So, after years of defending Fortune 500 companies and insurance companies, Ramin made the pivotal decision to switch sides and champion the underdogs instead. So, since founding his firm in 2020, he's built a premier California personal injury practice with a unique focus on autism advocacy, which is really interesting. Ramin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Zane.
Okay, so you made a pivotal decision to leave defending major corporations at prominent national law firms to champion the underdogs and establish RTM Law. What was the moment that made you realize that you wanted to switch sides?
Well, it's hard to just pick one moment, but one moment that really changed my mind was there was a morning I was walking into the office and a partner that I worked under and an associate were giddy, they're high-fiving, they're celebrating, and that's not very common for a defense firm. We're defending very tough cases. So I asked what's going on, and the truth is honestly more heartbreaking than you'd believe, but they were celebrating that a plaintiff in the case that was suing our client had died, meaning the trial wouldn't be going forward. And this is a person who was just in our office 2 weeks ago as a human being that we knew. So the fact that they had so disassociated from the human side of it to the work side of it, I thought that that was one of the final straws for me.
So I could see how that could happen. You get so wrapped up in your work, but that's really great that kind of resonated with you in that way. So RTM stands for Really Tough Matters, which perfectly encapsulates your approach. How do you decide which cases are worth taking on, and what makes a matter truly tough in your eyes?
So the really tough matters is basically really tough representation matters, but we also do handle tough matters. And so by that I mean cases where liabilities in dispute, there's a challenge to how much our client was at fault. And we take on a breadth of cases, typically involving serious injuries, and even cases that are, otherwise be questionable. A lot of other firms wouldn't touch because of issues with liability. We do a thorough investigation, we determine everything. And if it's a case that we can take on, we push it. And if not, I tell the clients, we spent, tens, if not hundreds of hours, a lot of money, no cost to you. I'm not going to charge you a penny, but, I don't think this is something that would be worth your time and for the merits to go in front of a judge.
Okay, so your firm has unique focus on autism advocacy, which was really interesting because I actually have that in my family too, and helping families with special needs. What drew you to this kind of specialized area of law, and how does it differ from traditional personal injury work?
So I have my son was diagnosed with autism 3 years ago, and we've been very involved with the community. And the reality is, as a parent to a person with special needs, you're so overwhelmed. There's so much going on in terms of advocating for your student, for your child at school. With we have IEP meetings, getting ABA therapists, special. So there's just so much on our plates as parents. And the reality is, a lot of times when our child is injured or hurt, or somebody falls below the standard that they should be held accountable to, a lot of parents are just overwhelmed and they just kind of brush it. I brush it off like, oh, just let's just let it go. So, just hearing the heartbreaking stories consistently of persons on the spectrum being sexually abused, being hurt at schools, hurt in different areas, and the parents just not having the resources to pursue those claims. So I've really taken it upon myself to spread awareness, and explain to them the rights that they have, with claims against school, if their kids injured at school, at ABA therapy, occupational therapy, what have you. The difference that my firm, that I'm proud about is, we have people who are trained in this area, and we have a very strong understanding of how persons with special needs, especially with autism, experience pain differently. How this the same impact to two people. If a person with autism has experienced the pain differently, it's going to change their routine. And it's really the damages is what we pursue in personal injury cases. The damages are in most cases much higher than a neurotypical person would experience. And that's something we're very comfortable and familiar with explaining to the juries.
So you've had experience as former counsel for insurance companies, and now you use that kind of insider knowledge to fight against them. How does your background on the defense side give you an advantage as the plaintiff's attorney?
When I speak with my colleagues and friends who've only done plaintiff side work, they think of defense attorneys as these big bad guys and they're doing everything. And so they have to be adversarial, yell and scream to get their way. But the reality is, when I was on the defense side, I love when a plaintiff's counsel would pick up the phone, was friendly, explain their position to me, explained what they needed to get to have, for the client to be happy. So a lot of the ways that we would value personal injury firms that would come up against us, the plaintiffs firms, we would write to the insurance company. We think this is a firm of high caliber based on the work product, based on our conversations. We think this firm can get a good result. So I've implemented a lot of that into what we do on this side.
Okay, so you graduated from UC Berkeley and University of San Diego School of Law. How did your academic background prepare you for the realities of personal injury litigation?
I don't know if anything academically really prepares you to do what we do. I think at the end of it, being a human being with empathy, understanding, who's a good listener is what's going to make you a best personal injury attorney. That being said, my academic credentials, I've been through the ringer both academically and professionally up to this point, which makes me, I work a lot harder than most attorneys, and that's something I've been doing for a very long time.
So your firm operates 24/7, is that right? And you have multiple locations across California. How do you maintain quality and personal service while scaling rapidly?
Yeah, so we've had the good fortune of scaling pretty rapidly, and we utilize similar to the Toyota model or a lot of these big corporations, right? How do you make sure that every single car that comes off your factory is the same standard, regardless of who the engineer or who the mechanic who worked on the case was? So we use checklists, we do check-ins. I personally do all hands meeting twice a week. When we do have a good result, I make sure to share it with everyone on the team, explain to them, this is the result we got. This is why. This is what we need to do on every single case. And I constantly remind everybody, we are so fortunate and so lucky to be in this position where people are trusting us in the toughest times of their lives. So, how many jobs are there that you can actually change somebody's life and you see that change, right? So they go through a hardship, you help them, you talk them through it, you review their medical records, explain to them what's going on, and ultimately you're able to get them a big check. That a lot of our cases are life changing. So I'm very fortunate to have this. And I think that's something that the team that I've been lucky to build shares that vision with me.
So you've secured multi-million-dollar settlements and have a track record of exceeding clients' expectations. What's your approach to case valuation and settlement negotiations?
So I think at the end of the day, you know how to put a value on it. It's a very difficult thing to put a value. How much is somebody's finger worth? Well, if it's Kim Kardashian's, maybe it's worth more than a Joe Schmo who works in construction, right? That's how a jury would see it. So what I do, I go to my clients' homes, I talk with their spouses, I talk with their kids. I get a really good understanding of who this human being is and what was taken from them, so what the impact has had on them. And quantifying that isn't something easy, but it's something that, again, coming from a background of working on the insurance side, that I've become very comfortable doing.
Mm-hmm. I've got my list here. I want to go through them. So starting as a litigation consultant in 2008, you built RTM Law into a premier personal injury firm. What were the biggest challenges in building your practice from the ground up, from nothing?
Yeah, so when I say I literally started from my attic with $0, people don't believe me, consider the growth that we've had, but that was the truth. Started with one case. That one case, I got paid enough to start, hire my first employee, and we kind of grew from there. Um, so in terms of the reason for the growth, again, I think we've done a good job with our clients. Our clients refer us to their friends and family. We become known in the community. So that's helped us grow a lot.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper here because actually want to know. I let a lot of this. I have these lists of questions, but then I get driven by my curiosity. So when you start out, you're in your attic. Were you married or were you single or?
Yeah. So the story is that in 2020, I was working at a very, very large financial institution, one of the most prestigious in the world, and I had a 3 month paternity leave. So when I was on leave, I've been a person that keeps myself busy. My mind's going. It's like, am I really happy? Am I content? What do I want to do with my life? Do I see myself doing this for the rest of my life? So I took that time to make phone calls to get an understanding of what other lawyers are doing, what the industry is looking like. So after I returned from parental leave, I decided that I want to strike out on my own. I want to start my own firm. I left on good terms. And when I left, there was a firm that said, "Hey, we'll hire you part time. We know you want to start your firm. We'll hire you part time to do court appearances for us and in person depositions." 2 weeks later, COVID happens. So that job was out of the picture. There was also another attorney who told me, "Hey, I'm planning on retiring in the next few years. I'll start giving you some clients, start offloading them to you, as I moving towards retirement." So that was my plan of how I'm going to build the firm. And a few months into COVID, he says, "Hey, business is down drastically. Courts are closed, so I'm going to push back my retirement by 5 years. So, sorry. Good luck with your firm." So it was back to the drawing board. I had a mortgage. I had a 3 month old child at the time, and actually the crazy thing that happened to me is because courts were closed, a lot of trial attorneys were all of a sudden not busy because they're not in court. And, people are not getting in car accidents. So I started a show similar to a podcast on this platform called Clubhouse, and I started interviewing people. And then one thing led to another, and I started interviewing the top trial attorneys around the country. The biggest names were all asking me for me to interview them, to asking me to come on my show. And people ask me, "How do you do such a good job in asking these questions?" I was like, I'm genuinely curious. Like, I want to learn how to start a firm. I want to learn how to get a $10 million verdict. So I'm asking them the nitty gritty of my game plan and what I'm going to do when I start my firm. So that show, over 6 months, we've had, thousands of regular listeners into the show. I built relationships with a lot of those firms who were like, "So, how big is your firm? You're doing such a good job of marketing." I was like, I literally have two clients. One is my dentist. The other one's my best friend. I have no business plan. I'm just trying to figure it out. And a lot of those people ended up being my mentors and referring me cases and helping me out. And so that's how I started my firm.
See, that's the meat I like to hear. Those are really good stories. Did your wife think you were crazy, or was she
Um,
all on board the whole way through?
I would not be here without my wife. She had so much confidence and faith in me. She always knew I'd figure it out one way or another. So she was very supportive all the way through.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, your autism advocacy programs offers vital assistance and resources to families. Can you explain how that works and why that's important to your firm's mission?
So what we do is what people call us, whether they have a case or not. We have a list of if you need uh, ABA therapists, occupational therapists, whatever you need, you want to get in contact with your regional center. First of all, most people don't even know all the resources available to them. It's convoluted. There's so many ads and spam in the space. So we say, here are the resources available to you. These are some people that we trust that you can reach out to. And so, we try to be that one shop where if people call us, we give them resources. A lot of times people call us, "Oh, my son isn't doing well in school. What could you do?" The reality is there's nothing I'm not a special education attorney. There's nothing I can do on the educational side, but what I can do is I can give them the resources of what they need to do to get to where they need to be. So that's what we've been very fortunate to be able to do.
So, because you have this personal relationship, I mean, this personal situation, that you've really gotten emotionally involved in the my granddaughter is also autistic, so I'm very sympathetic, and so that kind of caught my eye when I originally was doing the research. So your team includes attorneys with diverse backgrounds, from public defenders to employment law specialists. How do you build and manage such a multidisciplinary type of team that does so many different things, or has such a different background?
So I say, my social media presence has been very helpful to attracting talent. People are interested in what I do, want to learn about me, and some of them have been able to join the team. So I mean, recruiting top talent and retaining top talent is just something that is a challenge for every growing business. So I think because I have such a presence, because I do interviews, and because a lot of people in the community have gone to know me, we've been fortunate in being able to bring on top talent.
So RTM handles everything from car accidents to product liability to wrongful death claims. How do you maintain expertise across such a broad range of personal injury law?
So at the end of this day, every personal injury claim is a human story, right? So if you can tell that, if you understand the human side, you understand the human story, and if you're intellectually curious, you can get to the bottom of a lot of things. Obviously, I've been practicing for over a decade in different firms, so I have experience in all those areas. But the more challenging cases, obviously, I'm much more hands-on with. The cases that are, things that we typically handle, I have a lot of very competent team members who are able to help with those.
So how does your firm differ from maybe a bigger, like a national firm, or are there big national firms in personal injury? I know that there's all kinds of sizes of firms, but how does your firm fit into the overall um, matrix of other firms? What makes you different?
So national firms are typically very marketing heavy firms, right? They have the billboards, the radio, TV ads, and I'm sure you've seen some of them. And those firms typically they take a very narrow set of cases. They want auto cases. You're rear-ended and you went to the emergency room or whatever. They have some parameters and they take those cases. And the cases they don't, guess what they do with? They call me. They say, "Hey, Ramin, I have a tough case. It's not in our parameters. Can you handle it?" So we don't spend money on marketing. That's how we get our cases, is from some of those national firms. The difference is my clients have my personal number. They're in touch with an actual attorney. I'm involved every step of the way. A lot of those firms, they have assistants dealing with everything leading up to the actual lawsuit.
Do you still have your Clubhouse group?
So unfortunately, our the Clubhouse itself, after the pandemic kind of died down, just people weren't available, and a lot of the talks, they're all live. So it's a
Yeah.
live audience. That's why there's so much engagement. So people don't have the same time, or not putting in the much same time. So the platform itself died off. And for me personally, I was invited to give talks at some of the largest national personal injury conferences about marketing, about what I've done with the platform. And believe it or not, there was my second son was born, and then we had a personal situation that I had to cancel all these events that I was planning on going to. And I remember I was really down, like this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I could have taken it next level. And I did some, self-reflection. It's like in 10 years, do I want to be the best interviewer, the best podcaster, or do I want to be an amazing trial attorney? What's going to make the biggest impact on most people? And I decided that I want to be an attorney who runs a firm, not a podcast, not somebody who focuses solely mostly on marketing endeavors. So that's when I decided that, most of my focuses are now going to the firm and my clients.
So it was kind of a blessing
I
in
would
a weird
say
way.
it was a blessing. Sure. I mean, I'm not one to live with regrets. So whatever happens is for the best.
Okay, great. So you have offices in Santa Ana, Bakersfield, Los Angeles, Torrance, Victorville, San Diego, San Jose. What drove the decision to expand so rapidly across California? And does that not make you crazy?
So our San Jose office, our newest office, we just went live with 2 weeks ago. We have a very large case. We built good relationships in that community. And from that one case, we talked to experts, we talked to a lot of other local attorneys there. We saw that we have something unique to offer that's not being offered in that market. Is it challenging? Certainly, but again, I'm fortunate to have a good team, and when the process is in place, it's easy to replicate it.
So there's a lot of management things that go on behind the scenes. So do you have like a manager that's either a managing attorney or I mean you can't manage what was that? How many offices was that? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Is that right?
We do have a very strong management team, people with medical backgrounds, people with operational background. And what I've seen is like the hired managers tend to not be the best managers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I like to hire technical people who actually don't even want to be managers, but they're just so technically savvy, they're able to train other people and make sure that people are meeting up to our standards. So we've been fortunate to kind of foster and build leaders within our team. So it's been great.
So do you think that is it because you're hiring top level talent for the attorneys that they are in essence they're managing themselves?
Yeah, I don't micromanage. So I hire people who don't like being managed, and I hire people who have something to offer. and are self-motivated. And so the reality is, in the last 5 years, unfortunately, there's been a lot of people who've left who don't live up to our standards and our expectations. And I think for any company, even if you're not an attorney, having your core values, reminding the team of their core values is one of the most powerful things, because either people are aligned with those core values and they love being here, or they don't and they self-select and they leave. They're like, I just want a 9 to 5 job. I'm not growth oriented. I like to know exactly what I'm supposed to do, and that's all I want to do. People like that tend to not want to stay here for much long.
You seem like a go 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 kind of guy. I like it. So, as someone who's worked on both sides of personal injury cases, what are the most common mistakes you see attorneys making in this field?
For attorneys, so I think there's a lot more mistakes that people make. A lot of times people have cases, they don't call an attorney, or they're injured and they think I'll be fine. I don't need to go to the doctor. I'll just wait. And then they call me 3 months later. And unfortunately, you don't have a case much left because the insurance company has very specific parameters of what they consider a case. So, if somebody's in a collision, ambulance transported to the emergency room, well, there's definitely a case there, right? But if you drive yourself home, you just kind of massage there, put an ice pack on it, and then you go to your primary care physician 2 months later, say, well, I have some pain. They're going to think, well, you couldn't have been that much pain. Why'd you wait so long, right? So those are the things that I learned on the insurance side. As for personal injury attorneys, um, I don't, on the business side, I would say that a lot of what I see is just looking for the easy cases, not willing to put your neck out, put your money where your mouth is, and fight on challenging cases. And I think, you build a reputation on your tough cases, not on your good cases. And the other thing is, again, I give my phone number to my clients. I go to my client's home. I build a relationship. I get the human side of the story. So when I'm in front of a jury, I get emotional. I get teary eyed when I talk about what happened to my client. And the jury sees that. They believe me because I believe in my client. If this is a person, all I've done is look at his file, talk to him maybe once or twice on the phone, and then I show up. It doesn't matter how good it is. That connection really matters. So build a connection with your client. Doesn't matter if it's the smallest case or not. Just start from somewhere. Get to know your clients. Get to know what impact this had on their life, what their totality of damages are. So that could be, maybe they missed their kid's soccer practice. Maybe they missed their daughter's high school graduation. If you pay me 10, 20, $30,000, there's no universe I would take that to miss my son's graduation. Absolutely no universe. So there's a value to that. And unless I talk to my client and I go through every detail, I'm not going to know that.
So you emphasize everyone deserves justice, especially people with special needs. Can you share a case, an individual case that kind of exemplifies that philosophy?
I have, excuse me, I had a client who had an attorney. The attorney called me, said, hey, I see on your website it says you do autism cases. I want to give you this case. I don't know what to do with it. Basically, he says, just see if you can help this client out. The client on the spectrum was on a bicycle, a car made a right, hit him, he falls on the ground. Because he was verbal, but because he's on the spectrum, he's not, he wasn't able to effectively communicate to the EMT that came, even to his primary care doctor, what his injuries were. Because they're asking open-ended questions, they're making him nervous, so he kind of locks in. They ask him yes or no questions, he just says no, no, no. He just wanted to get out of that situation. So what we did was working with a speech therapist and working with his primary care doctor, we got a good understanding of exactly what happened, which was he had a ligament tear in his knee. The doctor would not write up they did an x-ray, but we said he needs an MRI based on, this guy's a runner, he's a cyclist, he's not doing that anymore, there's certainly something wrong. I literally got on the phone with that physician. I said, based on what I've heard, he absolutely needs an MRI. He said, well, the insurance may not approve it because he's not complaining of pain. I said, well, do you understand he's limited verbal, he's on the spectrum, so of course he's not going to be able to communicate. I'm calling you to advocate for him. Even if the insurance doesn't pay for it, I'll write a check out of my pocket. He gets an MRI, there's a ligament tear, they tender the full insurance policy. There's a $0 offer before I was involved in the case.
Yeah, wow, that's terrific. What a great story. So your firm handles DUI accidents, Uber, Lyft cases, other emerging areas of personal injury law. How do you stay ahead of well, DUI is not really an emerging area. That's a long time area. But let's just talk about Uber and Lyft cases and other emerging areas. How do you stay ahead of trends in the field?
Yeah, I'm very involved with consumer attorneys of Los Angeles, with Justice HQ, with other organizations. We're constantly discussing cases, up and coming trends. Uber and Lyft has really changed how they're managing and handling these cases. It just happened a year ago. So I share what I've been through on these cases so other younger attorneys know. So I'm involved with a lot of communities, on the plaintiff side, and we share information.
Okay, so you build a reputation for vigorously defending clients and securing favorable verdicts in California courts. This is kind of an open-ended one. What's your trial strategy and philosophy?
It's just, I've said it twice before, I say it again. Get to know your client really well, be able to passionately convey what the story was. I had a client involving a family. Um, they're Muslim. The wife wore a full headscarf. The father didn't speak a word of English. They were recent immigrants. And the defense thought, well, if this family goes in front of a jury, they're not going to award them that much money because they don't really like them. They had just immigrated from Iran. We put together a presentation showing the love story between this mom and their oldest son who lost his life due to tragic accident. The videos spoke so loudly about, this is what we did is we really put together a story where any human being would resonate with. Anybody who saw this would look past, their skin color and their race and religion and see that this was a catastrophic event in the mom's life, and her health really declined after she lost her son. So, how's another case? Not to toot my own horn, but from $0 to multiple $1 million being offered on this case within a few months of me spending time with a family, getting to know their human side of the story.
How do you decide how much time you're going to? So, like the amount of time to prepare that kind of a story for a jury or for I don't even know if you went to jury on. Did you go to jury on that? You probably
No, we
settled.
resolved it. Yeah, they offered to resolve it for an amount my clients agreed to maybe 6 weeks before trial after they saw the videos and they kind of heard the story for the first time because they, hadn't taken the time to do that to really get a full understanding of it. So typically in any personal injury case, you're looking at what are the damages. If it's damages that will resonate with any human being, this is the case I need to put a lot of time into. If it's a story where it's tenuous, we don't know really if this collision, if this accident really caused those injuries, so the less, I would say, obvious the injury, the smaller the injury, if it's just like, a low fender bender or rear ender, a low speed, that doesn't require as much of my time. We've been able to get good recovery on those cases without putting hundreds of hours in.
Okay, I think that about winds it up. I really appreciate you coming on. Hang on, I'm going to press the button, then I'm going to talk you off air. So thanks everybody for watching, and really appreciate our guest here today. That was really good stuff. Thank you, Ramin.
Thank you.